I got the hostess asked to start your video. I have to start the video. I can't. Is that me? Start my video?
Yes, yeah.
I'm not there. I can't. Can I reach it? See now this? That's fine.
Yes. Yeah.
Beyond that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Morning, everyone.
Morning, Mayor Council. We are streaming at this time, so to allow the mayor to read the notice before we call the meeting to order. We are streaming.
Favorite thing. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to council meeting for July the 8th. And as we know, public can submit written correspondence regarding agenda matters by email to clerks@richmondhill.ca. Written correspondence must be submitted at 12 p.m. the day before the meeting, which is kind of over now. Comments submitted will be provided to all members of council, considered as public information and noted in the public record. As we are in a electronic meetings, electronic delegations, the public may appear to apply to appear, as an electronic delegation by video, and we have two today. Applications as an electronic delegation must be submitted again on the 12 p.m. on the day before, and obviously the clerk will put it on the agenda. So that being said, we are now opening our meeting, and I would ask everyone please to call to order or stand for the national anthem, please. Very good. Thank you. Councillor Chan had indicated he was going to be late from the start of this meeting, so we don't see him. And have we got everybody there, Mr. Clerk, on the screen? No, Mr. Munch left again.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. All members who indicated they would be here at this time are in.
Okay, no, thank you. Council announcements. The members of council wish to bring forward an announcement.
Yes, please. Yes, please, Councilor Munch.
Okay, got you. Councilor Silvers, did you say yes? Yes. Okay, that's all we have at this point. So Councilor Munch, an announcement?
Good day. Well, I wish everybody a belated Canada Day. I really enjoy the celebrations. There were lots going on, even with social distancing. You know, some things going on were fantastic. But my announcement is a couple things. You know, at 100 and we're 153 years old. Actually, 154 now. 154 years old now in Canada, and we follow our principles of law, order, peace, and good government. And I encourage everyone to watch the opportunity of our LPAT hearing for the young Bernard that's being lived on YouTube. It's quite interesting for me and some of the people that are watching from around us, who I'm encouraging to do it, to see how we actually are governed, to see how we are progressing, to see how open and transparent we are. I'm finding it interesting to watch many of the Zoom meetings at many municipalities, including ours, and to watch how people are really open to having a dialogue for professionalism. What was interesting so far, this hearing started in the LPAT hearing for the OMB for the young Bernard, started last Thursday, July the 2nd, after Canada Day. And what's interesting to us on council, again, I encourage you all to watch it. You can live stream it. You can watch it in the past, is that in 2010, we did an official plan. We're coming up to our 2020 official plan. And what's being clearly articulated is some of the things that, that we need to do as a government, and some of the things we have and have not done. I encourage you to watch it. It's quite telling. And I really do enjoy it. So you can watch it while you're doing other things in your life. You're muted, you can't hear it, and you can watch past, and every single segment you have to reapply. So I encourage all the public, I encourage members of council to observe it. It's a really definition of how you follow a process. Are we open and transparent? Do we reduce red tape? Are we open for business? This is not a telling time of a political mantra. It's are we serving the best interest for the quality of life? And are we progressing, and how are we doing? And that's up for all of you and those watching to determine what that is. So I encourage you. I wish you all a very happy Canada Day. It's a fantastic summer. I'm getting a lot done. I hope you guys all doing a good day, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Silovitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank our events staff for putting on a really phenomenal first kick at the can virtual Canada Day. It was quite different than everything we had experienced before, but a superb job was done by all. And I wanted to specifically send out a public thank you to all staff. They did a phenomenal job in bringing us through a virtual Canada Day. So again, my thanks. And everybody, please wear a mask when you're out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others we've heard from as yet? Okay, if that's the case, introduction of emergency time-sensitive matters. I understand we have Mr. Who am I looking out for? Councillor DePaula.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two items that I'd like to bring forward that are time sensitive, not emergency, but they can't be put off till September. One is regarding a tree removal, and the other is regarding a community garden. If I could be called upon at the end of the meeting.
Sorry, tree removal, and the other, sorry, is?
Regarding a milkweed garden, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, on the screen before members should be the appropriate motion to add the matters. I would just like to, if I might, clarify with the Regional Local Councillor DePaula. I was advised that item B was invasive weeds and milkweed garden. Is that correct?
That'd be a more appropriate title, sure.
Okay, so those two have been, sort of seconder for the introduction of these emergency time. Is there someone? As a seconder? I don't see any.
Mr. Mayor, I've been waiting.
Thank you, Councilor Prella. Yes? Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor of adding these to the agenda? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Two items. And they'll come up, as you know, Councillor, towards the end of the agenda. All right. So with that, can I get a motion that at this point in time, we just adopt the agenda as we have it before us? Councillor Chan, welcome back, or welcome in. And Councillor DiPaolo. All those in favor? Opposed? This is for the adoption of the agenda. I'm sorry. We're good? Yeah, okay, thank you. I looked away. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof of any members of council? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk. Okay, we now have adoption of previous council minutes. There are 4 minutes, council public meeting June 17th. Council meeting on June 24th. Special council public meeting on June 29th. And council public meeting on June the 29th. Can I have a mover and a seconder for those 4 minutes? Councilor Pirelli, Councilor West. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay. Now it's at this time to identification of items requiring separate discussion. I have a list. People have given me a number. I should say there actually is a presentation. There is someone is attached to that, and then there's also the delegation. So those are on the. Let me just make sure I have. I've got 12.9, which is the Recover Richmond Hill action. 12.22 is the delegation, a delegation. There is one other.
1227.
12.27, yes, direction required. Councilor West has brought that forward. So is there any other items that people wish to draw out for discussion at this time? Remember, motions come out anyway. Okay, so we shall now adopt the remainder of the items except for those ones that Mr. Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the only items not being adopted on consent are 1219, 1222, 1227, and we will hold the bylaws until the end.
Okay. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that agenda item? Councilor West, Councilor Sullivan. All those in favor? Opposed? No, it's carried unanimously. So we are now down to presentations. So we have presentation by Anthony Arulo, Manager, Economic Innovation and Partnerships regarding Recover Richmond Hill Action Plan. So, sir, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of council. On behalf of the Recover Richmond Hill Task Force, I am pleased to present the draft Recover Richmond Hill Action Plan for council's consideration. Next slide, please. So in terms of context, council approved the establishment of the Recover Richmond Hill Task Force on April 22nd. The task force included representation from 4 levels of government and our 3 local business associations. The primary purpose of the task force was to expeditiously lead the development of an economic recovery action plan to assist local businesses to respond to COVID-19. We focused on a very rapid deployment of the plan in order to assist businesses in their sort of acute need for recovery, given the tremendous impacts of COVID-19 at this time. We've been actively working with partners to develop and recommend economic recovery action plan items to council, and we're focused on supporting businesses through the reopening stage and also through the pre-vaccine recovery stage. We anticipate that in a post-vaccine world, the measures and actions that we might need to take to support recovery during that time might shift. And we're prepared to reevaluate and readjust programming at that time. Next slide, please. The development of the plan was informed by an international best practice review, a significant best practice review conducted by staff, as well as significant business outreach that included over 400 business consultations that staff conducted over the past several months, direct restaurant and hospitality outreach, feedback from over 550 webinar participants, the various webinars that we delivered over the past 3 months, feedback from 2 Board of Trade essential business webinars where we were keynote speakers, results from surveys that were done by various partners, including the Tech Connects group, the Richmond Hill Board of Trade, and York Region, as well as weekly meetings that we've been hosting with our local business associations and feedback from the task force itself. Next slide, please. So based on this consultation, we learned a number of things from businesses that were sort of top of mind in terms of concerns. We heard a lot about concerns around shifts in consumer behavior as the economic climate is shifting and typical consumer patterns are shifting with that. There's real concern around the possibility for permanent closures and layoffs as a result of the impacts. There was concerns around supply chain disruptions and reliability, both on the manufacturing side and on the commercial side. Rent obligations continue to be a major priority for local businesses. With a sustained shutdown, their ability to meet their rent obligations is being challenged. And so we've been advocating fairly strongly for support in that area. And then we've also heard that through reopening, there's additional costs that businesses are incurring around PPE, cleaning, the temporary shutdowns, if there are flare-ups in specific businesses that require them to shut down. And this is really impacting profitability. Next slide, please. So what we heard in terms of what they require in order to move towards recovery is continued financial support during the recovery phase in order to offset some of those impacts. Support for reopening, particularly as it relates to public health requirements and regulations and ensuring compliance with those regulations. Assistance with developing new businesses and business ideas. What we've seen is with significant closures as well as increased unemployment, there's been sort of the positive side of that there's been an increase in interest around new business concepts and ideas that we've been seeing through our Small Business Enterprise Center that we want to cultivate and bring forward through support for innovation and entrepreneurship. And then business continuity is a significant factor for businesses as well. With the impacts of COVID-19, it's fairly clear that local businesses want to be better prepared if there's a subsequent shutdown and want to start putting some effort into business continuity planning. Next slide, please. So the action plan that's in front of you today was developed to achieve a vision and mission that was developed by the task force based on the feedback received from the local business community. The vision for the plan is to actively assist Richmond Hill businesses to thrive in a post-pandemic economic environment. This vision is supported by an operational mission to proactively achieve support or to provide proactive support to local businesses and targeted support for investment in entrepreneurs to help the business sector in Richmond Hill grow. Next slide, please. So in order to guide the development of goals and actions within the action plan, the task force considered a series of action planning principles, which were really meant to focus the analysis. The principles included that the action plan should support a wide range of sectors, since we know the impact of COVID-19 has been widespread. But we also need to consider that there are some highly impacted sectors such as retail, trade, hospitality, tourism, entertainment, food services, cultural services, and personal services that may require a bit of additional emphasis in order to support these groups through recovery. There's also noted structural changes in the economy and consumer behavior as evident in the feedback we've been receiving from our business community. And these have really created a need to emphasize support for innovation and entrepreneurship in order to offset some of the potential impacts and cultivate opportunities around what's happening with COVID-19 right now. Next slide, please. Another principle was that education, training, and advanced skill development should help stimulate innovation and business recovery. That ties back into the innovation and entrepreneurship theme that was discussed on the previous slide. And that local, regional, provincial, and federal government should align programs to maximize impact and eliminate overlap. We want to make sure that investments that we're making aren't redundant with investments that are made elsewhere at different levels of government or even in the private sector. And this particular point sort of references back the structure of the task force itself, which included all 4 levels of government in order to ensure that what we're proposing does align with what's happening at other levels of government. And the last one was that the last principle was that the action plan should leverage best practices applied to the local context and existing program delivery structure. And that really relates back to our process at the start around developing the action plan and conducting a fairly extensive best practice review that looked at crises elsewhere in the world to see how other communities have responded. Next slide, please. So the principles help to inform the development of 3 goals and 10 action plans, which are highlighted in the following slides. These actions have been identified as a higher priority from the task force based on an initial set of 15 action items that were identified through the process. So we've essentially taken a set of 15 action items and prioritized them to this set of 10 action items structured within 3 goal areas that are in front of you today. Under the goal of delivering business support services, 3 actions were identified, including launching a business support hotline to assist businesses to access reopening and recovery programs during predetermined times. This would be a dedicated resource during set hours that businesses could connect with and get on-demand direct advice on various programs. We also have delivered a reopening webinar series in partnership with the Board of Trade to assist businesses with reopening. We launched that program in May, actually, and we continue to make that program available in its recorded form to assist businesses that are continuing to reopen over the next several months. We've also, since March, been maintaining a fairly active daily updates on an online website as a resource for local businesses to access all of the available support programs. The task force told us that that was something that was important and something that we should continue to do. And so that's referenced as action item 3 on this slide. Next slide, please. The goal of supporting investment, innovation, and entrepreneurship. There are 4 goals identified here. The first is launching a partnership with Shop Here and Digital Main Street to assist businesses to build and optimize their online platform. We actually formalized this partnership in June, and we're already building sites for local businesses as we speak. The second is launching a business innovation contest and innovation showcase to provide small businesses with the opportunity to partner with us on innovative products and services. So the idea here is that there are businesses within our community with innovative ideas that could benefit the municipality. And so we'll give them the opportunity to share those ideas with us and procure services through us in order to support us in response to COVID-19. We also plan to highlight all of the various participants through an innovation showcase, celebrating innovation that's happening in Richmond Hill today, and really helping us to position ourselves as an innovation leader through recovery. The third is the launch of a local innovation center in partnership with post-secondary partners to support entrepreneurs, incubate new ideas, and accelerate business investment. So we've been very active talking to business or to post-secondary partners and have made some significant advancements in this area. And so we're really excited about the opportunity to create some space, partnership with a post-secondary partner in order to, on the provide on-the-ground support for entrepreneurs and to incubate new ideas and accelerate business investment. The fourth here builds on some programs that we already deliver through our Small Business Enterprise Center. And we're hoping to partner with York Region and the province of Ontario to shift the focus towards some of our existing businesses that are pivoting towards recovery and providing them with micro grants in the range of $3,500 to $5,000 in order to assist them to implement some concepts. We're relying on the platform of our programs like Summer Company Plus in order to provide the appropriate rigor in order to implement these programs, but shifting the focus to our existing business community. And this reflects funding that was recently approved at Regional Council for this purpose. Next slide, please. Under our final goal, encouraging local residents and businesses to shop local, the first action item is to permit the creation of temporary outdoor patios, and Council, I'm sure, recalls that this action is in front of them today, and we're already moving forward with some approvals around this on an interim basis. The second is a concept around the Shop Safe Downtown program, which really features enhanced cleaning and safety in partnership with York Region Public Health and York Regional Police. Early on in our discussions with the task force, the concept of confidence really sort of dominated some of our first meetings. And the idea that confidence for investors to invest and confidence for people to shop was really key to recovery. And so this particular action item speaks to confidence directly and hopefully providing local residents with confidence to shop in our downtown, given some of the efforts that are being made by both the city, York Region Public Health, and York Regional Police. The third action and our final action item in the plan is to work with the Richmond Hill Board of Trade and our BIA to support a Shop Local campaign. The importance of residents and businesses shopping local, given the current economic conditions, is important. And so we're working actively with our partners to develop a public campaign to encourage residents and businesses to shop local. And so that's the last action item highlighted on this slide. Next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, staff are seeking council approval of the Recover Richmond Hill action plan today. As council is aware, and as I've sort of described in the previous slide, staff have been advancing portions of the action plan really to provide proactive support for local businesses, and will continue to advance the implementation of the plan within existing budgets if approved by council. We're also going to continue to work with internal and external stakeholders and partners in order to advance action items. We recognize that economic recovery during these times is not a unilateral exercise, and that the strength of our partnerships is key. And then finally, our intent is to monitor the plan in terms of its progress and report back to council with what type of impact we've been having on the business community regularly over the next several months. So with that, thank you for your attention, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Which is a second delegation is the Board of Trade. So I would suggest that we have Ms. Mortfield make her delegation, and then we can put it together to have conversations and questions and answers. So if we could do that, Ms. Mortfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank you and members of council for the opportunity to address you this morning. The action plan for the Recover Richmond Hill Task Force speaks for itself. The Richmond Hill Board of Trade supports it wholeheartedly. I'll just take a couple of minutes to talk about the impact of the task force process. The Board of Trade has been a proud member of the city's Recover Richmond Hill Task Force, which was created to help our local business community emerge from the economic impact of the pandemic. Our particular thanks go to Councillor Godwin Chan, who thoughtfully steered the task force, and to Councillors Tom Munch, and David West, who were such an important, committed part of the process. City staff, Mita Gandhi and Anthony Yarulo, have made a concerted, ongoing effort to connect directly with businesses and the business community. They offered guidance at our essential business webinars, and recordings of their presentations have been accessed by hundreds of people after the fact. We've also spoken at least weekly since this began. I'd like to personally thank both Mita and Anthony for their willingness to listen and to act when we've made specific requests on behalf of the business community. The recommendations in the action plan are an expansion of that willingness to listen and directly reflect the needs of our businesses as we work to emerge from the pandemic. The task force is in microcosm what we've seen happening across Canada. Partisanship has been set aside in favor of just doing the right thing. The collaboration between all levels of government has been remarkable, and it is our community that benefits. Our provincial and federal representatives were also part of the task force, and the discussions that took place at our local level have fed into positive actions at all levels of government. I remain hopeful that this nonpartisan approach to the coronavirus will continue. I'm also hopeful that senior levels of government will recognize in Richmond Hill's action plan the pressure that's faced by municipal governments. I'll finish by thanking Council for allowing us to be part of creating a roadmap for the future of our business community. The measures outlined in the action plan will make a difference, and I hope you'll vote to support them. Thank you for your time this morning and for everything you're doing on behalf of the business community.
Thank you, and your help with that program. Okay, we'll bring out 12.9. I had a request, Councillor Chan as the chair. Do you want to bring it out and put the
Yes, I would. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
We'll put the,
I'd like to bring.
I know, I just want to put the, yes, we want
Yes.
the,
To approve the action plan.
So,
yes, the staff recommendation, sorry. So I just want to get that on so we know what is there. Might help some of the discussion. Okay, fair enough. Go ahead, Councillor.
thank you.
Interrupted you twice. Sorry.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to bring forward this item 12.19 and also the staff recommendations, which contain the 10-point action plan. So, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm certainly very humble and privileged to be the chair of this hardworking Recover Richmond Task Force, along with my colleagues, Councillor Munch, Councillor West, and also I believe it's the first time in my last 14 years in Richmond Hill that actually 4 levels of government being part of this task force, namely the federal, provincial, regional, and local. As well, we have business groups such as Karen Murphy, who just make the delegation from Richmond Hill Board of Trade. Also with our BIA, the Business Improvement Area, as well as the Chinese Business Association. And I would say that particularly as the delegate was saying, my special appreciation to the whole team of economic development for the hard work and support. So the task force have been meeting ever since May 5th, every 2 weeks, and we met diligently. We went through, as our manager presented, with hearing what the businesses are saying, working also to hear what the federal representative, provincial representative, what kind of initiative or opportunity collaboration. I would like to sum up in actually 3 Ps. The P meaning that has been very productive task force meetings and leading to, as presented, with the 10 action plans. And also the second P is partnership. In fact, the very helpful to work with all these partners, including from the delegation from Board of Trade, like Board of Trade with the shop local, as well as providing information on businesses that we're covering. We need to have those protective personal equipment, where they can get them. The Board of Trade is actually have a list or matrix to show where people can get them right here locally in Richmond Hill. So those partnership is very helpful, and the partnership from the federal and the provincial representative are providing a lot of input, as well as the region, of course. And the last P, I would say, is now we're in front of my colleagues, the plans to help businesses in Richmond Hill moving forward. Obviously, this is just the beginning and more need to be done. So I would like to move Mr. Mayor and my esteemed colleagues to have the 10-point action plans to be adopted by this council. So maybe Mr. Kirk, looks like the mayor is making motion.
Looking for it.
We do have that 10-point action plan to be recommended for adoption. In fact, it was actually on page 1 of the report that the Recover Richmond Action Plan, which is attached as Appendix A to the staff report SRCM 20.14, be approved. That's my motion. And thank you for the time to bring this forward. And again, my sincere appreciation to everyone involved in the Recover Richmond Task Force. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Can we get the motion? And please. Councillor West, I'm looking for hands here now too as we move forward. There we go. Councillor West, any other one wish?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, I think all the information that about this initiative has been given out in the presentation by Mr. Arullo. I will say I was very impressed with the amount of input that we received throughout this process from levels of government, from business organizations, and I think that one of the things that I think I'm most proud of about this this process and this plan is that it really was a collaborative effort. And I think really at the end of the day, right now, for us to be moving forward with all that's going on in our economy, we really do need a collaborative effort, and I think that's great. I think I want to be clear that, you know, I would like to make sure that we get this implemented in a timely way. And as Mr. Arullo said, some of the actions in that report have already started. You know, there are things that we have done in our economic development department, and that's great. And I guess the final thing is, and this was mentioned, I think, in the presentation, is that I'm under no illusion that this is the last step in the process. We are going to be needing to do a lot more for our businesses and other organizations in Richmond Hill in the coming months, weeks, perhaps even years after this. And so this, I think, is a good step at this moment, but I think we all need to be prepared for other steps to come, and we'll know what we'll need to do when those times come, because we are kind of in a bit of an uncharted territory at the moment. But I do know that we are going to be needing to support our businesses. So the final thing I would say is that, I mean, I'm sure all of us would like to be able to do as much as we possibly can for all of our businesses. And clearly we have constraints with regard to jurisdiction and budget. But I think that also speaks to the importance of making sure that whatever we're doing in this plan is synergistic and parallel to what other levels of government, like the federal and provincial government, are doing as well. So I think all of that is contained in this plan, and I'm happy to second it. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Silovitz. Just going by hands in the air here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Anthony, for your presentation. And thank you to the Recover Richmond Hill Task Force and Chair Chan. You're doing an excellent job here under some very difficult circumstances. And I agree with Councillor West. This is basically a platform which will grow without any question. And the initial action plan, points of action plan, will definitely be part of that platform. And I have no doubt that they will grow. I just have a few questions to you, Mr. Mayor, I would like to pose to staff just to get a couple of answers. So through you, I'm sure it would be to Anthony, it might be to Mita. With regards to the discussions that you have had, maybe I just missed it, but was the BIA included in those?
For you, Mr. Chair, the BIA is an active member of our task force. So Reka Shepherd sits on the task force and has been providing active feedback. Beyond task force participation, we've also been meeting weekly with RECA in order to get feedback from the BIA, and also engaging directly with BIA members. And so we've been actively engaged with the BIA throughout the process.
Excellent. Thank you very much. My next question to you, Mr. Mayor, are there any tools that we can assist local businesses to pivot to online shopping if they don't already have that in their toolbox? Because I believe that as we move through this and as we eventually come out of this, online shopping is the thing and will continue to be the thing. So do we have any way that we can assist businesses through you, Mr. Mayor, to Anthony?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So there are a number of action items in the plan that directly attempt to address that particular point. The two that I'll highlight is our partnership with Shop Here, which is focused on assisting existing businesses to create an online platform. So we're actually creating sites for existing businesses in order to sell online. Beyond that, our micro grant program is also set up to assist with that potentially. So as businesses begin to identify how they can pivot themselves in order to respond to COVID-19, we'll be evaluating proposals. And I anticipate that some of those would include an online strategy and resources in order to implement that online strategy.
That's great. Thank you so much. I mean, I was pretty sure that we would, but I do believe that that's something that's going to become paramount. My third question through you, Mr. Mayor, we have, the city has a list of restaurants that have patios. So we actually have that list. Have you been able to connect with those establishments who have existing patios to ensure that they are able to do whatever they need to do, and they are aware of everything they need to do to be able to open their patios and or extend them as per further discussion we'll be having next week?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the restaurant sector has really been a bit of a focus for us, given the impact that hospitality is having right now in response to COVID-19. And so we've been fairly actively engaged with restaurateurs through this process, beginning with over March and April and parts of May with our restaurant support program, trying to help restaurants to access online selling platforms and also begin to shift to takeout and delivery service. And then from that, shifting to the patio issue and providing some direct promotion to those sectors. We have an email list of restaurants that we've been marketing to directly. And we also did some direct calling as well. Beyond that, we also, through the process, have been hearing from specific restaurants that are having challenges with patios and trying to proactively address issues with potential landlord conflicts or regulations. And so we've been doing our best to assist that sector to pivot, knowing that it's a highly impacted sector.
Good, thanks very much, because that's, I think, you know, through the summer, probably that's the only part of their restaurants that will be open. I imagine that indoor dining is not going to take place, but I may be wrong, but I believe that it won't. So if the task force could just keep that in mind, there is a list of restaurants who have the patios, and I think it would be a good thing to reach out to them specifically and make sure that they are managing. And my last question to you, Mr. Mayor, to Anthony, is no mention was made in this discussion in your presentation about not-for-profits and local creative and cultural organizations, such as religious organizations, to assist them as well. And they need that assistance as well, especially not-for-profits. Is that a part of the Recover Richmond Hill mandate and action plan as well?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think the mandate of the task force was to support the business sector as a whole. So yes, it is part of the mandate. In terms of our focus, we have not included an action item that has a focus on the not-for-profit sector at this time. However, the task force has recognized that it's an area that needs to be addressed over time. And so we're actively looking for potential solutions and have some potential programs that we're evaluating in order to support that sector specifically. But through the development of the plan, there wasn't an action item that was sector specific that sort of emerged through that process. And so we've put it aside as an area that needs to be addressed, recognized it as a potential gap. But as it's been highlighted through the presentation and also through comments of the task force members, this is going to be a bit of an iterative process, and we may need to look at adding additional programs to support sectors over the next several months.
Good to know. Thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure that was part of your bailiwick, because it's definitely something that as a city and as a task force, a specific task force, I do believe that we need to make sure that we have their attention and they have ours. So again, thank you very much. I fully support the motion on this.
Thank you. Councillor Munch.
Good day. Thank you. I'll be brief. First of all, good job for all involved, the task force, which includes staff, Anthony and Media. Well done, as I said before. Good job to everybody. Good participation. I want to encourage. I really want to thank doing the patios. Right now, a lot of energy is going towards that for many of the business community. I'm getting calls daily from the business community on that and other activities, which is going to lead us to a lot of opportunity to put us, improve our downtown, improve our business community as a whole, and to be active. And I really believe that our engagement in that with other levels of government, if we continue that excitement, and you, Anthony, continue to engage with the business community as you have been. I don't mean to single you out. I know you've been doing that. I know others are doing it too. So apologize if anybody's being missed. But having said that, job well done. Let's continue to focus. Let's get ourselves going. We really want to make sure that we're an ongoing concern and that we're vibrant. And there's a great opportunity for us, as you said, to show some innovation. So good job. Well done. Continue. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. My feeling is the patios are really, really active at this time. It's the weather, plus it's available. There's one right out in front of the Sheridan that I understand is there, and there's a lot certainly in the whole 225 area anyway. So, but it's been very, very active. So there are lots of people that are aware of that, and it seems to be running well and properly. Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. We also have a delegation that was from the Board of Trade that will actually include in this motion. Is that all right with everybody? We'll just put it in.
Mr. Mayor, we'll add to receive the presentation with thanks and receive the delegation with thanks as well, if the mover and the seconder consent.
Yes, Councillor Chen here. Yes, I'm happy to add it onto the motion. We see the presentation and the delegation from Richmond Board of Trade with sincere thanks.
Okay.
I'm fine with it as well.
Yeah. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously from the members here. Okay. Our next item is delegation. Matthew Helfand, 19 Ava Crescent. Delegation.
Good morning, members of council. Mr. Mayor.
Morning.
Thank you for permitting me the opportunity to present to you this morning. My name is Matthew Helfand, and I'm a lawyer with the firm of Airden Burles LLP. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Mandel Chung, the owner and occupant of a house at 19 Ava Crescent in the town of Richmond Hill. I'm here today to request that members of council exercise their discretion and grant Mr. Chung the requested exemption from Town of Richmond Hill Bylaw 14090, which I'll refer to as the fence bylaw. The reasons for Mr. Chung's request for an exemption are as follows. Mr. Chung lives next door to 17 Ava Crescent. 17 Ava is an unoccupied house. However, starting in October 2019, Mr. Chung began observing behavior at 17 Ava that deeply concerned him, the details of which are set out in the letter that has been provided and is before you, that is dated May 4th, 2020. In short, despite 17 Ava being unoccupied, Mr. Chung has observed the intermittent presence of individuals in and around the house. Mr. Chung strongly believes that the irregular presence of individuals who are unknown to Mr. Chung and the behavior of those individuals pose a grave threat to his family's safety and privacy. Mr. Chung strongly believes that the house at 17 Ava Crescent is being used unreasonably and improperly to permit visual intrusion into his private residence. Mr. Chung believes that it is entirely necessary to take steps to protect his family's privacy and safety. In response to these concerns, Mr. Chung in 2019 erected the privacy screen for which he now seeks an exemption from the fence bylaw. The privacy screen blocks the direct visual line from the house at 17 Ava into his house at 19 Ava. This privacy screen was erected for the sole purpose of providing protection to his family from visual intrusion into his private home. The privacy screen is erected completely on Mr. Chung's property. I'm advised that the privacy screen has been constructed to the highest standards of structural integrity, and the construction methods are detailed in the letter before you. Further, the privacy screen itself is adorned with green vines in order to minimize its appearance of being out of place. Photos of the privacy screen have also been provided in the letter before you. The law recognizes that an individual's right to privacy, particularly in his or her own home, is sacred. The courts have recognized that a man or woman's home is their castle. Subsection 8.1 of the Municipal Act 2001 confers a broad power on the municipality to govern its affairs as it considers appropriate to enhance the municipality's ability to respond to municipal issues. Mr. Chung has taken steps that he believes are appropriate in order to protect his privacy rights, and I submit to council respectfully that council should exercise its broad discretion to permit Mr. Chung's request. Given Mr. Chung's privacy concerns, the request for an exemption is justified in these circumstances. Town council has in the past granted exemptions from the fence bylaw. However, this matter is not about precedent. Each and every application for a fence bylaw exemption must be assessed on its own merits. Because each fence bylaw application must be assessed on its own merits, granting this application will not create an unreasonable precedent. To close, I'd like to once again thank council for granting me the privilege of speaking before you today. I request that council consider the privacy concerns raised by Mr. Chung, assess this application on its own merits, and accordingly grant the requested exemption from the fence bylaw. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you very much, sir. So we'll bring out 1222. Councilor Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the delegates. And I would like first to apologize for my internet connection because there's been an area issue in my around my house. So it's been like that for the past 2 days. That every 20 minutes the internet drops. So I'm doing it through the phone now. And yes. Thank you for the. I read the report and also read the lawyer's letter. And before I comment, I would like to first ask through you, Mr. Mayor, to bylaw. Have we received any complaints regarding 17 Ava Crescent in terms of all those suspicious activities happening in the house?
Ms. Steele?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I believe you're asking specifically if we've received complaints about suspicious activities in the other house from other neighbors, and no, we have not.
Yes, and yeah, I'm not aware of that too, but I think there's lots of way to, if the owner thinks there's something suspicious in the house next to him, and he can call the police and call the bylaw. And I've read the report thoroughly, and I agree with the staff that, you know, as much as I respect the owner's privacy, we have a fence bylaw in place, and we are here to defend our bylaw. And I think that, if there's any issue, I think, before erecting a privacy screen, which is like double the height of the permissible height, I think the owner should apply for a permit before erecting it without a permit, and then come like half a year later and asking for exemption. I don't think that's the right thing to do. And I'm sure that will set a precedent, because if everybody's using privacy as a reason or excuse, and setting up a privacy screen like this, and I don't think the neighborhood will be very in acceptance of that. So I'm sorry, but I think I need to this time to defend our bylaw, and I would like to move the staff recommendation that the exemption to be denied. And most importantly, I will reiterate that, before erecting anything, please come and ask for a permit, and don't come ask for exemption after you break the bylaw. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you. So, Councillor Chan, did you have your hand up? No? Is there a seconder for the motion from the local? Thank you, Councillor Pirelli. Any comments, sir? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Thank you for the delegation. Very well articulated. I experienced a very similar situation on my own property. And Mr. Mayor, you might recall me telling this story once or twice or 300 times before. At the back of my property was a potential school site location. The school board didn't exercise their rights. The property went back to the builder, and he built a property with the sidewall facing my backyard. And there are several windows within 5 feet of the property line looking into my backyard. And I myself and my family, didn't feel comfortable with people watching in, and not even in our house, but just in our backyard. And Mr. Mayor, I planted trees. They do a very good job of blocking out the visual impact. And it works very well. I understand that, the residents' concerns. I understand they put up this privacy screen. I'm fairly confident they had no ill intent by putting this up. They probably weren't even aware that they needed a permit to do something like this. So it's good that the local councillor advised that, in future you should ask before you build. It's a good suggestion. And I do understand their need to want privacy. I think this isn't the proper way to have done it. And again, that's why I second the motion. I can't support it. I would recommend, just a few things if I can take the opportunity, but a tree might do the job. A roller blind in the windows there that, are seen from the next door neighbor property. And of course, if any resident doesn't feel safe because of activities in the neighborhood or by your neighbor, they should always know that they have the opportunity to contact the police and or our bylaw department and report any activity that makes them feel uncomfortable, so that we can, investigate that and come to some kind of resolution. So, Mayor, I'm happy to second this. I hope that the resident will take down the screen, put up a nice blind in their windows so that nobody can see in, and give them that comfort that people aren't looking into their property. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Any other comments at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor?
If I may, sorry, I'm my hand up, sorry.
Go ahead, and then Councillor Barros. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Munch.
Thank you, guys. Listen to what's said. I actually had the opportunity to visit the site. I'm not sure if any other councillor did visit the site. I've actually been monitoring this. Sorry, I heard an echo there. And I just think, again, what I appreciate that we want to defend our sign bylaw. What's a bigger picture here is I think that we need to show some level of tolerance and respect So I think as opposed to trying to go on both sides, either yes or no, if members of council are saying, hey, look, we have a recommendation that we do recognize that there may be some privacy issues from a neighbor, and that we do want to try to amend that from a variety of ways. We don't like the way that this particular party amended
Point of
that.
order, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, yes?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're speaking about a sign bylaw now.
Now,
No,
this
we're
is-
talking about, we're talking,
Okay,
Sorry, Councilor Munch was talking about a sign bylaw.
if I misspoke, I'm sorry. So there's a barrier put up. There are others that were saying that they prefer some other barrier to be put up by ear screens or what have you.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, are we speaking about a sign bylaw? I just want clarity.
no, we're not speaking about that, and I thought Councilor Munch moved away from that.
Oh, okay, so it's not a sign bylaw. Thank you.
Okay, so the issue here is that the gentleman feels that some concern, maybe some privacy concerns, is trying to amend those privacy concerns. There are other, it's been before us with other offenses, and members of council have also mentioned it in their deliberation here today. I think it's again, coming back to tolerance where we're at, I think we need to try to look at what the issue here is, that there's a particular member of our community who feels that they have safety and security concerns with regards to how they engage in their own household. And as the delegate communicated, that the courts and others have said that there is some level of expectation of people to have some privacy within their own household. And his remedy of putting up some form of a barrier to try to give that is the question today. How they did it, I'm not condoning it, and the way it's going to be. But today, what's in front of us is, do we as a council want to look at a manner in which we can have someone to have some privacy? I'm not so concerned about the process. And as I mentioned in my opening remarks today, I encourage you all to watch that, what's going on live now. When we put process, if we're going to be committed to that process, we need to deliver on those processes. And we have guidelines in those processes to respond to people and to the way that we govern. And again, I would encourage us today to maybe defer this, to try to see if the applicant or the party can work with our bylaw to find a way and a recommendation, because as some of them of the council, at least one has said that, hey, there are other remedies for them, where can they go? I would hate to see this next week or the week after where we have the same issue and you're asking that resident to basically, deal with it, and they don't know how, and to go at the beginning. So I'm asking, I would say I would like to move over, I guess, a deferral motion, or actually a referral motion back to staff through our bylaw to see if there's a way of which we can try to have a balance. So we can try to see if there's some, based upon our staff and others, see, is there a situation of which we could try to remedy this from nothing to something? And if staff come back and say there really isn't anything there, or any recommendations, what have you, that would be great. And at least we try to engage the residents' concern and others who may have the similar concern going forward, that we can have some form of a consistency to approach on how we do things. There's been many, many times where we've engaged amendments or motions, even on this during this term, for example. And I think we should do that again to show that we're consistent in our approach. And if there is a safety and security or concern by a resident, that we are actually engaging it. And I think our staff are already engaged. Ms. Steele has already said and been engaged. So I'd like to move a referral back to our staff to try to see if we could try to work through this problem, as opposed to making it an either or.
Is there a seconder for deferral motion? I do not see one, Councillor.
No? Okay, fair enough.
Okay. Councillor Barrows. Next on the line.
I was merely already voting, sir.
Oh, good, thank you. Well, let's do that now, back on the motion that's before us here. All those in favor of the motion that we have? Opposed?
Recorded vote, Mr. Mayor.
Sir?
Recorded vote?
Yes, we got it coming.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, voting on the motion of Councillor Liu, second by Regional Local Councillor Pirelli, Regional and Local Councillor DePaula,
Yes.
Councillor Silovitz,
Yes.
Councillor Munch,
No.
Councillor Chan,
Yes.
Regional and Local Councillor Pirelli,
Yes.
Mayor Barrow,
Yes.
Councillor Barrows,
Yes.
Councillor West,
Yes.
Councillor Liu.
Yes.
That motion carries.
Okay. We're there. We've got the motion, main motion back. We're done.
We're done, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, we're on to item
Okay.
12.27.
12.27, which is 2020 York Regions District School Board by-election proposed bylaw. Councillor West, you had asked to speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this was an interesting situation, and it was actually an interesting decision made by the school board to have the by-election, and I wasn't a part of those discussions, but I think clearly the challenges of having a by-election in any by-election, actually, with regard to voter turnout and so on, is always a bit of a thing, but also you know, during the COVID situation that we're in right now, I have no doubt at all that that you know, the by-election turnout, I suspect, will be very low. So what I would strongly recommend is option, I think it's option number 1, that directs our staff to look into doing internet and or phone, I think it was, voting for that process. I just would say, though, I also think that it's an opportunity for us to have a bit of a dry run at, or actually, that's not the right word, to do a pilot project on a smaller scale for us doing internet voting during the 2022 municipal election. And so I think that the effort put forward to do that for the school board by-election will be useful in the process for us to move forward with it in the municipal election in 2022. So I'm happy to go ahead and move that motion at this time, Mr. Mayor. And I also think that, you know, as I said, I think there is some opportunity for it to pay dividends for us later with regard to doing internet voting for the 2022 municipal election. So that would be the motion that I would put forward at this time, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chan, keep your hand, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to support and second the motion that put forward by Councillor West. And I think that one of the things is that this is something that past actual term council talk about for the whole municipal election. But for this by-election, this probably is the opportunity to conduct such an election in electronic format. Other municipalities, like our next door neighbor in St. Markham, have been doing it for more than one elections and have wonderful results, meaning that it's a really high turnout for the participants rate. Now, the good part about this is I understand for the clerk and his team, that would be time to put into it, but the money, the expenses would be all to be paid by the school board. That's my understanding. So maybe through Mr. Chair, the question to Mr. Clerk is everything in terms of, other than of course staff time and so on, any kind of expenses involved in conducting the by-election in electronic format or telephone or even mailing in are going to be covered or will be covered by the school board. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Kirk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, actually, yes, so all the costs, but also not just the staff time too, actually, quite frankly. Following the by-election, I will send an invoice to the school board, which will include all supplies, services, materials, as well as the staff time associated with conducting the by-election. The quotes that I provided the school board did include estimates on staff time. So the city will recover its full expenses related to the same.
So through Mr. Chair, thank you for Mr. Clerk's answer. So the school board is actually bears the all the expenses associated with it. On that light, I think that in the school board's wisdom, this is they give the opportunity for the 3 wards in the northern part of our great city to have that to exercise their votes either through internet or telephone or even meeting in. I think the clerk can finalize on which one to go. But I'm in support of this motion in respecting our York Region School Board's request. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And I'm seconding the motion.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishes to comment on 1227? Yes, Councilor Barros.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's curious, the decision the school board has made, and I'm just reflecting the number of emails that I've received just in the last couple of days from a handful of residents, speaking to the fact that they believe that the school board's decision is irresponsible. A number of us have seen on social media the outcry of how the school board must have more money than they know what to do with, taking a decision like this. So I committed to the residents to put their voices out there to be heard. It's just so disappointing to see a body make a decision like this in a time like this. I've always been apprehensive of internet voting, and I haven't seen yet a body of research, to Councillor Chan's comment, and perhaps he could share with me the research that he's been looking at, because I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen a body of research that shows that internet voting increases voter turnout. Voter turnout, from the research that I've been reading, is there regardless of the technology or non-technology. People who vote, they vote. People who do not vote don't get inspired to all of a sudden start voting and going through the process. It's not as simple as purchasing something from Amazon. It's actually, you've got to take the effort to go ahead and register, receive emails back, go into a system, accredit yourself, then have the opportunity to go ahead and vote. So I don't accept those comments that voter turnout is increased until I've seen any kind of research or body of such. I think that well, I guess here's my question to the clerk, being that you were involved in this. Is there an opportunity for us to refer this back to the school board to say that we would like you to reconsider your decision? You know, this is challenging times, and I think we need to, as the body that has to actually fulfill this and make it happen, with challenges ourselves in trying to help local businesses, in having our staff working on key things here in the city to keep it running. This is not something that we need to be dealing with at this point in time. Or the other question that could be tagged onto that, Mr. Clerk, is there a time frame legislatively this has to be looked after? Can it be put off for a period of time until such that we're back in the mode moving forward? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So if council were to refer this back to the school board, it wouldn't actually make a difference. I'm legislatively obligated, regardless of what council does today, to conduct a by-election at this time under strict legislative timeframes in the Municipal Elections Act. As soon as the school board passed the resolution directing that a by-election be held under the Education Act, under the Municipal Elections Act, I'm absolutely obligated at this time, because of provincial legislation, to conduct the by-election. The purpose of today's report is simply because I'm in a situation where, because of the pandemic and concerns with conducting in-person voting during a pandemic, I am putting to council, which is your sole responsibility, the opportunity to use internet voting as a way to stop or prevent the majority of in-person contact as a part of this by-election. If council will refer this back to the school board, I would still be obligated, as of today, actually as of yesterday, to begin preparations for a by-election to be held in this fall. I would at this time be doing so under council's previous bylaw, which would be the tabulators in person. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
I've got no further questions at this point, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Silovitz? Seeing no other. Councillor Munch. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to our clerk, I would like to know when a electronic election takes place, such as this, then explain, could you please help me understand how the electors are protected? I would imagine it's password. I would imagine they're protected. There are a lot of hurdles that one would have to go through in order to ensure the integrity of that one person's vote. If you could please let us know, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I just want to give us a broad outline of how the elector or the electorate who would be voting here is protected, and how the integrity of their vote is protected. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, I'm going to try to be as brief and succinct and provide as much information as possible. I should advise that the last time I conducted or had anything to do with an internet election was in 2014, or just before that. So I'm going to give you a broad overview based on my experience with internet voting. So there's two aspects to security, and I will be the first to admit that most people's concerns when it comes to internet voting relates to security. They relate to system side security, but also voter side security. System side security, we use vendors whose systems go through robust security testing to make sure that they are not penetrable. Often the vendors actually receive certifications for their systems from international bodies, and they meet certain international standards. So that's the system side security. Your question about the voter side security, we deal with that in a couple ways. And I will be frankly honest, I have not decided how I will do this in this election because I only had this put on me very, very recently. It's done through the authentication, and it's called factor authentication. So generally what you would have is, so individual voters are assigned credentials for the system and then get to choose their own credentials. So to get into the systems, we would mail voters a PIN. And this is just high level broad. With that PIN, they would then go into a system, but they'd have to provide other details, which might not be readily available, such as birth date or some other factor. They would then, to register, create another personal credential. So they secure themselves. So we secure the system side, and we also, then the voters are able to secure the personal side.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think we go through that ourselves on a personal basis sometimes when we are doing certain things on the internet. There's a double click that one has to do, or we are sent something extra in an authentication method. So I fully understand that. I do support this this motion, but I just really want to put on the record that this is not about democracy. This is about, I am absolutely shocked that the York Region District School Board decided to go this way. In this time, in this place, everything that we are going through at the moment, I find this, personally, I find this I find this odd. So it is unfortunate, and this is my opinion, it is unfortunate that the school board trustees have decided to go this way. I believe, I know there was a close vote. I believe it was like just one off, but all the same, it passed and it was approved. And in this day and time, there is no way something like this should be undertaken, but it is going to be. And it becomes our responsibility and our clerk's responsibility. So good luck to them, and I hope that it all works out, and this Ward 1, 2, and 4 Richmond Hill trustee is elected, and there are no problems. Thank you.
Councillor Munch?
Thank you. Okay, well, there you go. I didn't know I was on mute already. Yeah, I'd like to, I agree with a lot of what Councillor Silvitz was saying there. I'm concerned about and others, Councillor Burrows as well. I'm concerned about the safety and security, the precedent setting. I'm not happy with the way that the vote was conducted at this time. I think it was a close vote. I read some of the correspondence that was sent back and forth. I would say to the clerk, really concerned about how this is precedent setting, where this is going in the forward, how you're going to secure, even though we're sending it to residents, how you secure votes going forward is really always been a concern with me. Absolutely want voter turnout, want to look at other options. But at this time, 2 years into it, I'm not happy with the decision that they made, and I don't like the ramifications as it relates to us. I don't think we've done it before here locally, to my knowledge, to the extent that they're asking. And I think this is an interesting time. So I'm not in favor of doing the internet or telephone for safety, security, for the timing. We haven't researched it full length. We're now under time pressure. So all the reasons that Councillor Silvitz and Councillor Barris did the same thing, I'm not in support of it. I do like the idea of trying to get a voter turnout, and I know it's with the social distancing, it's difficult. Hence, then you shouldn't move forward with that decision if that was a concern. So I won't be supporting the recommendation of doing this online or voting, and so I'm not really sure how this is going to play out. So thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes. Councillor Fala?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I respect and support all the comments made by Councillors Silvitz, Munch, and Barrows. I just want to add also, we don't have a great track record of participation from our residents electronically. Our engagement has a long way to go when it comes to our electronic engagement. And I also feel that internet voting will disadvantage a lot of residents, particularly seniors, and other members of our community will not have the equal chance. We have tried, tested, and true method. There is a convenient location for in-person voting in every community, and until there's a significant change in our ability to engage with our residents electronically, I think it's very dangerous for us to change that current method. Thank you.
That's their choice.
I can speak to that, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, I absolutely understand the regional councillors' concerns in terms of access and ability. The point of doing internet voting, especially during a pandemic, is to drive the majority of people to non-in-person, so we aren't potentially dealing with potential health issues. That being said, if council chooses to do this, and I completely understand that this is short notice, and I'm not pushing one way or another on this, I promise you. In the event that council chooses to do this, I would provide a certain level of in-person support for this through what we call voter assistance centers. It's the only actually way it works when you do internet voting. So there would be, similar to like an advanced vote or a voting location, there would be there would probably be 2 locations in this city where we would be set up to support people to actually vote using the internet. So we would have staff there, and they could come in, and we would have tablets, and they'd be able to vote. So I absolutely understand the regional councillor is concerned. That would absolutely be mine as the clerk about disenfranchising anybody. And I've already in my mind thought about how would I do that. But I just want to ensure that if council does this, I will do everything in my power to make sure that no one is disenfranchised. That's my job.
Okay. Any other comments? Go ahead, Councillor Pirelli.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no doubt in the ability of our clerk and the clerk's department in making sure that everybody will be properly represented. What I do have issue with is that, number one, the decision of the school board, and number two, I do have issue with bringing this too quick and too fast, too soon, all at once, during everything else that we're dealing with. Had this been a different time, pre-COVID, maybe this is something that we could investigate and get a proper communication strategy out there for our residents. But in the time frame that we have, Mr. Clerk, it would be unfair to you as well and your team to put you under this kind of stress. So I cannot support the motion before us.
Okay, Councillor West.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would be willing to use this as a wrap up if everybody else is finished, but if not, it'll be a second round, I guess. So I don't disagree with some of the things that have been said about the appropriateness of the fact that we're in this situation, but the fact of the matter is we are. So I think that of all of the options available to us, I believe that the motion before us is the best available option. And I respect the comments that most of my colleagues have said. But to be clear, I don't actually expect that the voter turnout will be increased by internet voting. And I think Councillor Barros does make a good point that there has been some research that is not conclusive as to whether it increases voter turnout or not. But I think the point is here, under the circumstances that we find ourselves in, I would be very concerned that the voter turnout would be even less than it would be. So I think that the internet voting option is a way that we would hopefully be able to at least maintain the likely low level of voter turnout that has been thrust upon us by the school board. But I think that I didn't say this in my opening comments because I thought it was fairly obvious, but perhaps I should have said it. I think the thing about this is that given the situation that we're finding ourselves in, the number one priority, I think, really at the end of the day on this is that I don't think having an in-person election right now, if it can be avoided, is a good idea. So this will help us to primarily have a not in-person election. So I think, again, I think that's a better alternative than the worse alternative than asking people to congregate and be in a voting station. I also just want to point out that I have reservations about internet voting as well. But the reality is this is the way that a lot of jurisdictions are moving. And I'm not positive on the accuracy of this exact number, but the last time I checked, I think there were about 100 municipalities in Ontario out of the 400 plus municipalities in Ontario that are doing internet voting, have done internet voting in the past. And so there's certainly, we're not blazing a new trail here. And I guess the final thing that I would say is that this has come very quickly. But I guess at the end of the day, I agree with what's being said, that I do have faith in our clerk staff to make sure that we're doing all the things that we need to be doing to do this perfectly and do it well. And actually, I was very impressed by that comment that Mr. Hike just made about offering support and help for people who are not maybe quite as familiar with internet voting. So it's things like that that I would have faith that the clerk's department in our community, in our city, will come up with the very best way to do this. So I think at the end of the day, I just want to be clear. I think this is the best situation in the situation that we find ourselves in. But I mean, clearly it's up to council to make a decision as to how we proceed. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I look forward to the vote.
Okay, I agree. It's very difficult, but we'll put the question to everyone. Is anybody going to ask for a recorded vote, or are we just going to go ahead? All those.
Record a vote, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Voting on the motion to approve option 1, internet voting, Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Councillor Barros.
No.
Mayor Barrow.
Yes.
Regional Local Councillor DePaula,
No.
Councillor Liu,
Oh,
Yes.
yes,
sorry, once again, please, Councillor.
yes.
Councillor Silovitz,
Yes.
Councillor Munch. Councillor Munch, please.
My fault. No.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli
No.
and Councillor West.
Yes.
That motion carries only.
Okay. We now move to
Your member's motion, Mr. Mayor.
members' motion. All right, thank you. And actually, where did Councillor DePaulo? Could you just take over at this point for this, my members' motion, please?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. You
All right.
have the floor. Go ahead.
Nope, thank you. And I brought it forward and I have a seconder, Councillor Silovitz at this time. And this was a motion that came forward through the region on April 30th. And it follows up on our own inclusive charter information that we have in our city. And it's being now circulated to all the towns and cities in the GTA. And it's the adoption of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance and dealing with the definition of anti-Semitism. So I'm putting this before us because I believe that this is where we should be. We're known as a city and a community that does have great relationships with the Jewish community. And we do have a number of Holocaust events to make sure that we all understand the issues that are before them. And I would like to put this on the floor here as a motion. I don't know if Councillor Silovitz wishes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, just as a, we have a procedural problem here. According to our bylaws, I think rightfully, Deputy Mayor Pirelli should be assuming the chair as we are beyond July 1st. I don't know if the clerk can correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you. Actually, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is correct. Actually, Deputy Mayor Pirelli is the July to December.
Okay, so I'll pass the chair over to
My mistake.
Deputy
Councillor
Mayor Pirelli.
Pirelli. Councillor Pirelli. So that was, go ahead.
Happy to assume the chair, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to bring it up, but thank you, Deputy Mayor Paula, for bringing it up.
Okay.
Procedurally, that would be correct. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, okay. I was just going to put Councillor Silovitz is my seconder. If she wishes to speak.
Go ahead, Councillor Silovitz.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing this forward on behalf of the Jewish population of Richmond Hill and from myself as the only Jewish member of this council. We are so proud to have this come forward, and we want to thank you and hopefully all members of council who will vote for this. It means a lot to the Jewish population in Richmond Hill and the Jewish population at large. So those are all my comments. I fully stand by the motion and will gladly second it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Silovitz. Does anyone want to speak to the motion? Looking for hands, none. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries unanimously. Happy to pass the chair back to the mayor. Mr. Mayor, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor there. All right, we have the second of the member motions, and I'm not sure which one is which. We have two of them, so bringing one forward.
To you, Mr. Mayor. So I did list the motion related to the tree because that was, as I was provided it, the tree removal as emergency item 14.1, so the first member's motion. And that would be up to, that's Deputy Mayor DePaula's motion, so I would need some more clarification from him in that respect.
Okay, I'm not sure where he is. Where's the motion?
To be honest, I actually haven't received he's advised me that he would give me the motion. He's provided me photos, but not the details at this time.
Deputy Mayor is missing here in the list. See.
Perhaps then, if we want to, maybe, and of course I'm in council's hands, while we're waiting for Deputy Mayor DePaula to perhaps to get back on, we could at this time deal with all the bylaws, because they can all go. And then, because these motions aren't dependent, the bylaws aren't in any way related to the emergency of time statute of motions.
Okay, so we have bylaws, and that's 15.1 right through to 15.13. Am I correct?
15.16, Mr. Mayor. There was
oh, I'm
three
sorry.
bylaws
Yes,
added.
yes. I have a mover and seconder for the bylaws at this time. Mr. Silovitz, second, please. Bylaws. Thank you. So Barros. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay. Mr. DePaula, we're just doing some things while you were getting yourself organized.
Apologies, Mr. Mayor. I had something to attend to there. Okay. So thank you, Council, for allowing me to introduce two time-sensitive motions. The first motion is with regards to a tree removal. There's an address on Maryvale in Ward 5 that they're 2 years into their building process. The City of Richmond Hill has approved all their building plans and every stage along the way. They're in the final stages now, and in order to construct their driveway, they need to remove a tree that is directly in front of the proposed and approved garage. So I've given some wording to the clerk. I'm not sure if the clerk can set this motion up on the screen for others to see.
I can actually, through Mr. Mayor, I will put up what I received. It's actually not the motion per se, but certainly information. Should be on your screen now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. So that's just the general nature of the matter. We'll have to consult with staff on the proper wording. I'm hoping for council's indulgence here and in understanding the nature of what this resident is up against. If you could just give me a moment here. Okay. We've got, okay. So the clients are Cheryl and Harvey Klein at 37 Maryvale. They've been building their new home for approximately 2 years and based on a city approved building plan. The plan shows the removal of at least one tree that would impede the access and egress of the approved garage and driveway plan. In fact, it's now located directly in front of the garage and driveway. These property owners have their own arborist and landscape architect working on the front lot plan for the tree and shrub plantings. This plan is based on the removal of at least one tree. Since the initial plan was submitted, the property owner's arborist approached the city staff for a permit for the tree removal many months ago. The permit was denied, and both of these trees are old Norway spruce. Based on their arborist inspection, are beginning to show signs of a disease common to Norway spruce called Cytospora canker. Norway spruce also have a very shallow root structure and are highly prone to blow down in high winds. And as a result, they pose a danger to the home in the event of a windstorm. My office was approached on June 16th by the property owner in an effort to resolve this issue and to determine why the tree removal permit was denied by our arborist, despite being approved in the building plan. Unfortunately, with the restrictions on staff resources during COVID, and currently staff assigned to this file are on vacation, action has been stalled. So in the meantime, the final stages of completion of this house has been stalled as a result. So I didn't want this issue to linger any longer, and this is why I brought it forward for council approval of the removal of at least one of the trees as specified in the building plan. In discussions with the property owner, they're hoping for approval for removal of both trees, given the presence of disease in both trees and the risk they pose to the home as a danger. The property owner has been very clear that their landscape architect and arborist will work with the city staff to ensure replanting of trees on the property, which will replace and enhance the existing tree canopy coverage. For that reason, I'm asking council to approve the removal of both of these trees and that staff recommend replacement trees that are compatible with the existing streetscape of Maryvale and which will improve the tree canopy on this property. I believe the clerks have a picture and you can see the two trees in question. The project is complete with this one outstanding matter, and I don't think it's fair for this applicant to have to wait for a decision until September. And I hope council can see the common sense in going forward at this time. So the motion will be that council grant the approval for the removal of these two trees, and that in cooperation with our staff, they work on a plan for replacements. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Just give me a moment and I will attempt to type that up, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. While we're dealing with, I think we understand what's going to come up. Councilor Perrelli, you're the seconder. Do you wish to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would. This is not an uncommon situation, Mr. Mayor. Sometimes one department is unaware of what the other department is doing. It's clear the intent of the city in granting a building permit and a driveway, that it's accepted and understood that, you know, the trees aren't going to remain in the middle of the driveway impeding egress and access to the property. So it's just a matter of the arborist doing their job, not knowing exactly what the situation is regarding the site plan. So I'm happy to second this. I like the second part of Deputy Mayor DePaula's motion, which has a remedy for replacement of those trees, and hopefully more trees that will last a lot longer than the current trees, which are dying. And so I think it's a win-win situation, good for the resident, good for the neighborhood, good for the city, good for our tree canopy, and good for the environment. So I'm happy to support this motion, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Silovitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to, I'm looking at my screen. I think the best person here would be Commissioner Kwan. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Commissioner. Do we have any staff reports on these two trees from our arborists? Because I don't know anything about this. And I'm the local councillor. I was not informed about this, so I'm flying by the seat of my pants here. And I'd like to know from our staff as to what we know about the condition of these two trees. From the photographs, we don't even know how tall they are. They look extremely mature. and obviously are part of the streetscape of Maryvale, which is a really beautiful street in South Richvale. Commissioner, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the best of my limited knowledge, a building permit was issued for the property about a year ago. And there was, through that review process, a request to remove a few trees on the private property, which were supported and approved by staff,
Yes.
acknowledging that there was a conflict potentially with the boulevard tree, to which there is a separate process for removal and compensation. But the permit was issued on the basis of the support of staff for the private tree removals on the private property itself.
Thank you. So in other words, just to be clear, there was no approvals were given and no investigation or examinations were made of these two specific trees, which are city trees. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's acknowledged that there would have been a request to remove the boulevard tree, but the permit was issued on the basis of the resolution of the tree removal on the private side only.
Yeah, got it.
So the removal of the boulevard tree would have gone through a separate process to deal with trees on public property.
Right. Thank you very much. So in light of that, I would like to refer this back to staff so that we get a full staff report that is part of our process and procedure in this type of matter. I believe that those two trees deserve at the very least that. And then this can come back to us in September and we can make a decision. We can make a decision then. So that is my amendment.
Okay, seconder for the deferral. Sorry, Councillor West.
Mr. Mayor, just before, I will put the referral up on the screen. Can I confirm with the Deputy Mayor DePaulo that the motion, as I have it up on the screen, is your clear intent? And the only reason I'm asking is when we record this in the minutes, regardless of what happens, I want to make sure that it's accurate.
Yes, it is, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder for deferral.
Just while we're waiting for that to come up on screen, if I could just complete my thought here. In order to protect the mature canopy of our city, which is under stress, I believe that it is without any question prudent for us to do this. We cannot fast track something like this, and we need to go through the proper process and procedure, therefore my amendment. And I thank Councillor West for his second.
Thank you. Councillor West?
Can I ask a question of staff at this time? I can never remember if it's referral or deferral that I can speak to.
I would think it's a deferral.
It's a referral to staff for a further report, yes.
Okay, so I can ask a question of staff then on this. I'm a little bit confused here as to why we would be in a situation like this. And I think Commissioner Kwan maybe touched on this, but if you could just clarify for me, it seems fairly counterintuitive that we would allow something to be built and then not have and to have an obstruction in the driveway. But having said that, I actually can't tell from the photo and from the limited amount of information that I have about this, whether in fact the tree is actually an obstruction or whether it's beside or maybe off to slightly to the side of the driveway. So I have to assume that there's a reason for the circumstance that we're in right now. And I'm very hesitant to make a decision on this because I don't feel that I have all of the information. And so I would support Councillor Silowitz's ask for information. And I mean, the answer may come back that yes, in fact, we would remove those trees. Keep in mind that the fact that they're boulevard trees, I mean, they're a community asset that other people on the street also, get to enjoy. I'm also very unclear, and that's one of the reasons I would ask for an arborist report on this, is the disease point. I'm not an arborist, but I probably know enough to be dangerous. But a lot of times when we get reports on trees, the report comes back that a tree that is the age that these trees would have some less than perfect health situation going on in the tree. But the thing is that from what I understand, in a lot of cases with these evergreen type tree diseases, is that the disease is there, but it's not going to kill it in any sort of an immediate time frame. So I think it's important that we get back a report from our own arborist staff just to give us the full rundown on this, because if it's not necessary to remove the tree, then I wouldn't be in favor of it. So that's why I think it's very important in this case that we get the information. And while I understand that there's maybe some details that I'm not understanding, and I do have some sympathy, I suspect, for the owners of that property, at this point in time, with the information I have available, I don't really have enough information to make a decision. And I'm not going to be voting to remove a tree when a tree didn't need to be removed. So I would support the referral, and notwithstanding the fact that this may delay the process a bit, I actually don't think that it would necessarily delay it to September if in fact the staff could do something in between then and now. So I'm happy to support the motion to refer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have a question.
Actually, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I got sidetracked there. I did ask a question and I didn't give Commissioner Kwan an opportunity to answer it. So could I go back for a second and ask Commissioner Kwan, why would we be in the place that we're in right now?
Sure.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as I had previously indicated, there's the tree preservation bylaw deals with trees on private property only. The boulevard trees are a matter of subdivision design and engineering standards as to the fit and finish of all of our public infrastructure. So when it comes to, because it's a public tree, it's not a private tree. So there's, from my understanding, the opinion of our operations group is that the tree does have sufficient health to continue, or they have not reached an adequate resolution with the landowner as to what an appropriate compensation package would look like, if one is possible.
So just one quick follow-up, if I could, Mr. Mayor. So if this referral to September happens, it is possible that before September, the staff will complete the process, and a decision that the homeowner may be more amenable to could happen in the meantime.
Through you,
the process will go on.
I don't believe I'm the appropriate commissioner, unfortunately, to answer that question, as the operations section does not report to me.
Okay. All right, I'm fine with it the way it is, if that's where we're at this point. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilor Pirelli.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To me, it's very obvious and a very, very simple solution. The health of that boulevard tree is irrelevant at this point in time. I can't fathom a situation where we say to a homeowner, yes, you have permission to go ahead, build your 6,000 or 7,000 square foot home, have a driveway, because most of us have cars, give them permission for that driveway, give them permission to remove the tree on their private property that is in the middle of their driveway, and then say to them, sorry, the tree on the boulevard is not going to be removed. And if that were at any point in time, be it today or in September, the conclusion to this issue, then, Mr. Mayor, they're still going to build a driveway. Unfortunately, they won't be able to build that driveway or use that driveway because the tree will be in the way. Therefore, they would have to redesign their driveway, creating another site plan approval process. And if you can't remove that boulevard tree, then the driveway, because it is in the middle, and I'll ask staff to confirm that, maybe they can research it while I'm speaking, because that will be my question to staff. Is that boulevard tree directly in line with the driveway? And then we're expecting to put the driveway in on a 45-degree angle to avoid that tree, which in itself, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe would be approved, because then it would cause a dangerous situation in trying to back out onto a road at a 45-degree angle, which would cause further problems with the percentage of our front yard bylaw, which says you can only have so much non-permeable space in the front yard. And you can see by the drawing that that's already at a premium. So, Mr. Mayor, if it's really the intention of this council and the city to say to someone, go ahead and build your $5 million home, but you're going to have a driveway that you won't be able to access. I don't believe that's our intention. And that's why I'm seconding the motion by Councilor DePaula. And that's why I'm not going to support this referral, because staff has already said that it's a healthy tree and there's no reason. They've already denied the permit to remove that tree based on its health. What Deputy Mayor DePaula's motion and my second was to remove this healthy tree, replace it with some more trees, either on this property or somewhere else, because we have an obligation to the resident. When we gave them a site plan application permit and the building permit, it wasn't to hoodwink them into not having a driveway that they could access. Mr. Mayor, that's not the intent of our city, our staff, and it should not be the intent of this council. We have a decision to make. Let's give them closure. Let's give them peace of mind, and let's give them permission. If we would like, I understand that the standard to give security and certainty, I understand that the standard for replacement trees is at the ratio of 3:1, Mr. Mayor. And I'm happy to, once this referral motion is defeated, to amend our motion to include specific details to replace the boulevard tree with 3 trees, 3 times as much, so that this person can have their driveway and have access to the driveway. So I will not be supporting this referral. My question through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff is, can they confirm the location of this boulevard tree in relationship to the driveway?
30 seconds following the question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the information that has been provided to me illustrates that the tree is in the middle of the driveway, proposed driveway.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. And through you, Mr. Mayor, what is the standard best practices on the ratio of replacement trees for ones that we grant permission, as you've alluded to in your previous statement? What would be the ratio of that tree replacement?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, I do not have that information in front of me at the moment.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the appropriate staff member who can give us that information, I would really appreciate it.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Please ask the councillor to speak to the motion to refer on the screen. This is off topic.
I would think we need to move on to the reference here at this point in time, because if we can't get the information to...
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm speaking to the referral motion. I'm asking staff to tell me what the replacement is for trees.
Mm-hmm. egress and access of, you know.
What is the best practices ratio of tree replacement?
Is there somebody that can give it to us, or Commissioner? Have you got connections? Sorry.
Do we have anyone from operations? Maybe Grant Taylor. I can't see who's on the call with us this morning. Anyways, Mr. Mayor, suffice it to say that we don't need that answer right now. I know for a fact that the generally accepted best practices is a ratio of 3-to-1 using native species. So I'm happy to vote against this referral because it does nothing to further the resolution of this issue. It still has to be dealt with. Doesn't matter whether the tree is healthy or not healthy. The tree has to go. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councilor Barros.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking to the referral, I just want to say to my colleagues, while they may be well-intentioned to get information back, this just perpetuates the red tape that we see in government today. It's our responsibility to get out of the way at times, allow staff to do their job, allow business, allow residents to move forward with their plans. This, in my mind, is a no-brainer. There's a tree in the middle of someone's driveway. Obviously, that can't be kept that way. So I have full faith in our staff that by denying this motion and moving forward with the motion on the floor after this one, I have full faith that staff will work with the applicant to come to the resolution that is the most responsible and in the best interest of all the residents of Richmond Hill. But again, just to end, to perpetuate this application longer, asking staff to spend time and effort and money to bring back a report that gives us the common sense of, yeah, no, the tree can't stay there. It's in the middle of a driveway, perpetuates just red tape. So I will not vote in favor of this referral motion, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Sorry, go ahead. Councilor Paulo. And then we'll call a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the referrals, the not the appropriate action here. What all of our staff are doing their job. We approve up to 2,000 homes a year, and it's very rare that this happens where two departments both doing their job have arrived at a conflicting analysis, and it's been pushed to this executive level. This is a case where it's time for council to make a decision, and given all the evidence, this resident has completed this home. These trees were planted 50 years ago by the previous owner, not by the city. The city will cooperate with the homeowner and make sure that they have proper trees properly located in the proper position on the city boulevard, and they can finalize their construction that is complete except for this one detail. So it's time for council to intervene and say, although our staff has done all its correct work, in this one case we need to act right now. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Recorded vote, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. After you, Mr. Mayor, voting on the motion to refer this matter back to staff for further reports. Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
No.
Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes. No. No.
Councillor Chan.
No.
Councillor West.
Yes.
Councillor Munch. Councillor Munch, you're muted.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Mayor Barrow.
No.
Councillor Liu.
No.
And Councillor Barros.
No.
The motion to refer fails to carry.
Okay, to the motion then?
Can I ask one more question, Mr. Mayor?
Certainly on the motion?
On the main motion, I guess we're back to now.
Yes.
Okay, so again, I'm struggling here because there's a bunch of information that's been thrown around, but none of it's really coming from staff. And if the process, which I think Councillor Barros referred to as red tape, was followed, I wouldn't be in this position right now where I'm struggling to know the information that's accurate from our staff to make a responsible decision. But one of the things I think I heard during this discussion was that permission was already denied to remove this tree. And that, if I'm correct in that assumption, then that permission for denial would have come from the staff. Is that, can somebody tell me if that's correct?
That would be correct, Mr. Mayor.
So, okay, so if that's correct, and staff in their professional opinion in the process, whatever that they follow, has denied the removal previously of one or more of these trees, is there a reason that we know of? And I understand, Commissioner Kwan, if you don't know the reason, because this has kind of been sprung on us, but is there a reason why it was denied?
Commissioner?
Unfortunately, Mr. Mayor, I cannot speak to the rationale behind that decision.
Okay, that is crucial. And again, council clearly can do as they wish, but I can't, as much as I may sympathize with the homeowner, there's too many important parts of this process, not red tape, that have not followed, have not gone through. And at this point in time, I don't have the information that I need to do to make this decision. I mean, on the surface, it seems like the trees really need to be removed, but I actually don't have confirmation of that. And again, I'm dealing here with a public asset that is these trees, and I can't make a decision until I have all the information. Given that the referral has failed, it looks like we're not going to get all of that information. But you know, if you follow this through very much further, and this situation comes up again at a future time, what it really, in my mind, says is that if there's some reason that an individual person, homeowner, whatever, has for removing a tree without the proper vetting of that rationale, we'll just remove the tree. And I'm not okay with that. So I won't be able to support the motion, unfortunately, but you know, obviously council can do as they wish.
Okay, we have the original motion before us, Councillor Farrell.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for a second opportunity to speak to this motion that I've seconded. I'd like to answer Councillor West's question. I do know the answer, Mr. Mayor. Staff are usually not in any position to argue with the removal of a boulevard tree that sits in the middle of a driveway. The reason I believe that the application was denied was because there wasn't a meeting of the minds as to how many trees would be required and where they would be planted and what species they would be in order to compensate for the removal of that tree. But notwithstanding that information, Mr. Mayor, we all know that tree has to go, as was well articulated by Councillor Barros. The only question is they couldn't come to that agreement. Well, now's the time, Mr. Mayor, for this council to make a decision, remove the tree, and let staff deal with the applicant to replace the trees. But the fact that that tree has to be removed is not a question, Mr. Mayor. The way I see it, if this doesn't get resolved by council, at some point in the future, I would suggest that the applicant has a cause of action for being told that they'd be allowed to build a house and a driveway that they couldn't access because of a tree. So, Mr. Mayor, I don't want us to be put in that situation. This homeowner has been more than patient with staff and the city, and it's time for action, decisive action. And as Councilor Barrow said, it's a no-brainer, Mr. Mayor. The tree needs to go. Thank you.
Okay, then let's deal with this motion.
Recorded
Record the
vote,
vote,
Mr. Mayor.
please.
Sorry.
Record the vote.
All you, yes, we've got that.
Wrap up as custom, Mr.
Go
Mayor.
ahead. Yes,
Yep, just this tree is identified for removal in the building plan. Now, we just have to give our staff a break here. During a COVID crisis, the communication was not exactly what it normally is. They're going to come to us in September and recommend this action, and we're just providing some customer service in expediting and allowing this to not this homeowner in Richmond Hill not to wait 3 months. So that's why it's here on July 9th. We can do it in the fall. There's a very common sense solution here, and that's what's proposed. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, there's been a
If I
call.
may, please, Mayor.
No, we've got, oh, sorry. Councilor Munch, yes, please.
Yeah, good day. I would like to find, again, some common middle ground. Heard lots of conjecture either way. Maybe a communication problem, may not. Don't know if the tree is to be removed or not, or what the agreement's going to be done. With this Zoom situation now, where we can engage in a quick-faced manner, I'd ask the commissioner, I don't know if you can answer this question. Is there any way, do you have any concept as to how much time would need to get some feedback from staff as to how we can try to communicate this to see if it is a communication problem? Is there a timing that you feel that that we could try to assist, if at all possible? Because otherwise we're going on blind faith here, and that concerns me.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly would be my commitment based on what I've learned today, as this is the first time I've seen the issue. I would coordinate some communication and a go-forward strategy with all of the departmental groups involved and reach out to the homeowner and try to negotiate some sort of settlement as per council's intention if this motion is carried.
Do you believe you could get some sort of engagement within 2 weeks?
I would do my very best, sir.
So then I'd like to move a motion to say that instead of September 9th, we give the commissioner an opportunity to engage back and forth, and we do a special council meeting if we have to, a Zoom meeting to engage in this issue that shouldn't take more than half hour of our time. And if those members of council want to engage with staff and those members of council want to try and engage that in our commissioner set, they're willing to work with it. I don't see a communication challenge. I don't believe that I believe we're acting in a prudent manner. I think we're working within the staff and the client. And I, as a member of council, be more than happy to spend half hour of my time in the next 2 weeks, given when the commissioner can pull it together with the head of council.
Order, Mr. Mayor.
No, there's no.
Point of order.
A deferral motion has been defeated. So
Referral motion has been.
a referral motion's been defeated.
That's fine. It's if we're dealing with this, I'll land in the fact that we're having trouble getting people connected now. This is beginning through the whole process where there are actually vacations and there's people that we can't find today. So I don't imagine we can't just keep saying going to pick this day, pick this date, pick that date, Mr. Councillor. I don't think we can do that.
But we heard from our staff, our commissioner, that he believes in his confidence, and I have confidence in the commissioner, that he believes that he might be able to get this done within 2 weeks. So I
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
I know. We've had a request to refer, and that was declined. So I don't think we can deal with another one.
So are you denying me from the opportunity of moving another referral motion?
Yes, I am. We've dealt with it.
No, we dealt with the one motion. We haven't dealt with another motion I wish to move.
Mr. Clerk.
The chair made the ruling.
Yes, thank you.
I've done that.
Mr. Mayor, the mayor has ruled that he's not accepting another referral motion.
Please.
The appropriate response once a motion to refer has been turned down, during the consideration of the motion to refer, an amendment to make it a special council meeting would have been more appropriate than moving a motion that has now already been defeated.
So then I'll move an amendment to have a special council meeting within 2 weeks.
It's too late.
The mayor's
too late, I'm
ruled
sorry.
and the motion has been turned down.
Okay, fair enough, but not fair enough. He's moved that, he made your vote. Now I'm asking for a second now to have a special council meeting, which is a separate discussion now. I heard you. Thank you.
Correct, Mr. Mayor. That would be a separate issue, not this one.
Yes.
Okay. Fine. Well, then I can't support the motion. I'm so sorry.
Fair enough. There's sometimes I can't support some of them either. So, okay, we've been asked for a recorded vote.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I did hear, and correct me if I'm wrong, I heard Deputy Mayor Pirelli called for the recorded vote first. That was the first voice I heard. Thank you. So Regional Councillor Pirelli,
Yes.
Councillor Munch,
No.
Councillor Chan,
No.
Councillor West,
Yes.
Mayor Barrow,
Yes.
Councillor Silvitz,
No.
Regional Local Councillor DePaula,
Yes.
Councillor Liu,
Yes.
and Councillor Barrows.
Yes.
Mr. Clerk, I misspoke. I said yes, I meant no. My mistake, I'm sorry.
That is now noted. Even with that, the motion does carry.
Okay. All right, we're going to the next motion. Councillor Paula.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the rest of council for the indulgence here. Our last meeting of the year before the break. The first thing I'd like to do, Mr. Mayor, is move a motion to suspend our procedural bylaw to allow a resident who's been patiently standing by from Carrington that would like to speak to this issue, that the clerk could email them an invite to be a delegate to speak to this. There's 2 or 3 residents standing by, many people willing to speak to it, but we could confine it to 1 deputy. So I'd like to move a motion that council suspend our procedure to allow a deputy.
No harm in that.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just simply because the agenda has already been adopted, we do need to waive the procedure by law to add the delegations. In the event that council agrees and adds, we're going to be asking for about we'll take a five minute recess to allow us to get the invites. 5-10 minute recess allow us to get the invites to the proposed delegates. They can come in, and I would confirm for council that.
Is there one
delegate? To the one delegate, yes. I would confirm to council that we actually received delegation requests on Monday related to this, but we were not aware of this item, which is why they were not added to the agenda, because it was done so as a time sensitive matter.
It didn't exist. Okay. All right, so
there's a motion to waive the procedure by law.
Yes.
To allow, and I believe I saw that Deputy Mayor Pirelli had seconded that, but I leave that to you, Mr.
Yes, is that correct?
That's
Yes?
correct.
Okay, fair enough. But we're now going to call a 5 minute?
Could we just have a vote on?
Oh, yeah, let's vote on this. We'll call the vote to bring forward. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And yes.
So if we could just take a 5 minute recess to allow us to make sure everyone's in appropriately, a 5-10 minute recess, then we'll come back on. And once they're in and we're all set up, we will begin again.
Okay.
So you need a motion to adjourn?
No.
This?
No, we're just going to go on a directed, as part of the waiver of the procedure bylaw, I believe.
Yes, that's it. So please don't wander too far away.